There we are. We're live. Hello, hello. Tracy Noriega here, paying it forward to you. And here we are with Power to the Peeps. Peeps, again, stands for positive, extraordinary, everyday people stories. And we have the extraordinary Leanne from Seeing the Signs. Thank you, Leanne. We are both so excited and pumped and jazzed to be here.
Oh.
Just a little short ditty. I've known Leanne for, since 2018, I think it was. And we were in an entrepreneur group together, and we got to meet each other live in real person at a meeting, and went through a very deep retreat to just really look introspectively. It was pretty deep. So we all got to know each other very well, more than probably a lot of people know us who've known us for years, right?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah. And it was great. So to see Leanne with her development through her entrepreneurship as well. And she's a mom of, isn't it 5 kids? You've got 5 kids?
Yes, yeah. 5 children.
I was just like, okay, that's just and I'm the eldest of 5, and I would never do that, but commend you.
Thank you.
Yes, but I got to be not only see her journey, but this is why we're here, because she's doing the Seeing the Signs, and I got to be a part of her beta program when she was just rolling this out to say, hey, I have this idea. And she was very much encouraged, if not pushed, to do it, and telling me about it, and me on my parenting journey, which has been a completely different one. And we have our nephew, Jesse, and a series of challenges, I guess you would say, and growth opportunities. And so she knew about a lot of those, because I was going to you and asking you about a lot of stuff with kids too, having 5 of them. You invited me, and it's been a great journey. So congratulations on actually getting through all of that. And now rolling out this program. And that's why I have Leanne here, because I see so much value in what you're doing, having gone through the journey that Ruben and I have had to go through in looking for resources and looking for ways to, how do we help this kiddo, when we started to see the signs that, Jesse has a whole bunch of, emotional and neglect, and so much trauma in his past, and it was just all coming up, and it's like, how do we help, how do we deal with it? And it's hard to find those resources, especially for a kiddo. So what you do is extremely valuable, and I think we need to roll it back, because you got here because of the things, as all of us, of what we've been through earlier. So I know you had told me in a nutshell how this all got to being with your kids. If you want to give a little background of your childhood, then your marriage, and then the kiddos, and how this all came together to become what it is in Seeing the Signs.
Absolutely. So I am the oldest of 4 children, and my mom has what they call a chemical depression. And so growing up with her, she was an absolutely lovely mom, and definitely provided me with the physical needs that I needed, like the hugs and the kisses and like food and everything like that. But our roles were reversed when it came to the mental and the emotional support. I was her mental and emotional support, where she wasn't at a place in her life where she could physically support me mentally and physically. And that really left me feeling invisible, and left me feeling in a place where I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone. And that it was a lot on my shoulders to be there supporting her, my siblings. And as my life had progressed, I was finding myself attracting more and more individuals like that needed that mental and emotional support. So when I got married, I was like, oh, yay, I don't need to support anybody anymore. This is great. They can support me finally. And I spiraled into an inward, about me, and it was when my husband ended up having a mental breakdown, and it was quite severe. Like, we had to rush him to the hospital to get him to settle down properly. He lost control of his hands, and like being able to control his hands, control everything, his speech. It took 4 weeks for him to be able to properly form sentences again, and 4 months in order to be able to go back to work. And it was all stress related. And I had missed those signs. In fact, I had actually saw those signs, but I was so not paying attention that I thought it was that the signs I was seeing had something to do with me. And in that moment when he came home with having a breakdown, I was like, why did I miss this? Like, my whole life I had been seeing signs, I had been supporting people, but yet I had missed this. And that was the moment when I looked over at my kids, and I'm like, what am I missing in my kids?
Yeah.
And what am I been putting my kids through in that moment? Like, and that's when I really started to go into like hardcore research into ways to get access to where they are mentally and emotionally.
Well, and I think you hit on something that, doesn't get talked about a lot. And you and I have talked so much about mental health and just, the importance of it and how it doesn't get spoken into and realized. But I've met, I don't know how many people who have had that same kind of instance where there is a parent, or, where they're having, one had an agoraphobic parent, another one bipolar, like where the role reversals are huge, where the kid is actually more of the parent, even though they may be supporting them financially and with a house and everything, but emotionally, like you said, they're the ones doing it and holding up the house. And you as an eldest too, I'm sure you were doing lots of duties for all of your brothers and sisters, right? But I mean, that's where we also, I think we get so habituated to that's normal, or that's just how it is, that when you got to be with your husband, it didn't really seem, maybe, even though you saw signs, it just wasn't like a red flag in a way, because it was just, and plus, I think you said it so well, I'm so into me and it was all about me, right? And we make so much about all of this, including when we get to this program with the kids, the same thing. We make what's going on with the kids about us, and it's really not.
I really feel like the reason why we tend to miss signs are because we haven't been taught the skills and the tools that we need to be able to manage what's going on mentally and emotionally. And that's because our parents weren't taught how to manage taught those skills and those resources to manage their own mental and emotional needs. And that's one of the main things that is provided in this program is providing parents with those simple everyday tools that we already use. We just aren't taught how to use them and utilize them in such a way to powerfully support our children, but not just support them, but to then turn around and teach them what about the mental and the emotional areas of their own little lives.
Right. Well, I think what you're getting on too is it's making it intentional, right? Because we can do things, but if we don't have an intention for them, then they're just things we do, right? But if you decide, like in your program too, a big thing is the journaling. And I know that, for me, when you asked me to be a part of yours, program, I had been through so many different cognitive therapy, behavioral health, coaching, and all this other stuff where it was charts and charts and charts. I was like, oh my God, if I have another chart, I have to fill out, right, about, what he's doing. But in the end, that is the only way that you can see what's going on and figure out, what is the trigger? Is it about a time of day? Is it about an activity? Is it about, about did they eat or drink? Or, I mean, it's all that stuff. So it is there, And I think that's the other part of your program that's really powerful, is that there's going to be the resistance on the part of the parents about having to document all this stuff. But once you see that now you have, like, it's the proof. It's like right there, right? You know, and it's just sort of like, okay, now what do we do with it? And that's the great part of coming into the support group that you have, and even speaking with the other parents. So yeah, how did you then pull this together? You were doing it yourself, and then how did you formalize it into the program that we got into?
Thank you. That's a great question. First of all, I want to expand on the fact that everything is patterns. And so, like, there's patterns everywhere in our world. The way our circular system works, the way the seasons work, the days of the week, like, if you look around you, everything has a pattern. And one of the things that I started to become a parent to is that in order to start to see patterns in my children, I needed to have a way to measure that, and journaling was one of many very beneficial ways to do that. And how I ended up putting this all together, ironically, was when I started an online business as an affiliate marketer. I had a coach who just kept, she was coaching me on really getting this affiliate marketing business going. And she's like, you know what, you keep coming back to these same things about, children, working with children, and more intuitive stuff with mental and emotional stuff. And she's like, she goes, I would like you to write down what you actually do with your children. Like, write the whole thing down. And when I did that, she went to me and she said, this is actually what your business is. This is it. She goes, and I was taken back, because at the time I was trying to build something completely different.
Yeah.
And but it was the push of a coach to actually put it on paper, journaling, so that I could see a pattern that was constantly being replayed for me. And this is what was really in alignment with me, and not so much the affiliate marketing.
Yeah.
And so that's how this came together. Putting it on paper and being able to see it was the foundational steps I needed to take to really put it into a program that can be beneficial and is beneficial for other parents now.
Yeah. And I mean, it just speaks to the process that happens in the program, but that, you touched on too, how it's really vital. I mean, and I know I didn't have coaches and mentors. I mean, I would, do therapy and maybe sign up for some group stuff, and retreats. But it wouldn't be till like we met in a program we were at that we're, started thinking about actually getting coaches, right? Because that's that part. And that's, you played that for us as well. And I loved it. We played it for you, and we played for each other when we're all together, right? Because we see things that other people, when you're so, I heard that expression, when you're inside the box, you can't read the label, right? Because you're inside the box, and it needs to be the people who are outside who are sitting there and going, yeah, this is, what it's all about. These are the contents, but you're so in it, you can't see it for what it's worth,
That's right. And that's actually the reason why I structured the program in such a way that it's a group setting, because when you're going through these things, whether it doesn't really matter what phase or stage that you are in as a parent, whether your child is 2 years old or 7 or 12 or 18, and you're starting to see the signs, or you're starting to experience frustrations, you really need the benefits of being in a group setting, the benefits of having that support group of other parents and everything like that, is it helps you get out of it helps you get outside of yourself, and it helps you to get out of any negative space you have, and really realize that you're not the only one going through this.
Yeah.
And it also gives you different perspectives on what you're seeing, because oftentimes we're inside looking out, and we can't see from what people outside looking in can see. And so that's the reason why the program is structured as a group setting. It's really to help empower and support the parents along this journey as well.
Yeah, no, and that's great, because it is empowerment. Because the other part of it, I think too, is, we tend to get, especially if you have, kids with special needs, or just like, oh my God, nobody talks about this. Like, am I the only one that's dealing with this? Right. And then you feel, yeah, kind of alone. And like, do I speak about this? But then when you're in this group and you're hearing other people talk about their kids, like you said, at all these different ages with similar stuff going on, because I mean, when you look at it, we're all still doing the same things as adults. We're just big kids, right? Having our own temper tantrums and shit fits, right?
Exactly. We're just in bigger bodies.
with a lot more patterns that have been, But I believe that the other part was, it was empowering, because now you got to use all the stuff you've been through to help somebody else, like you said, have another perspective, or say, well, this is how I had handled it, or I've learned, from doing this, that doesn't work, um, and yeah, and one of the biggest things I think in your group too, other than that, is to notice how much we play a part as parents. So, is getting away from this thought of fixing the kid, right? And it's really looking at how we're looking at it, how we're viewing it, and how we play a part in it. So it's like this whole other level of, radical responsibility. It's like,
Exactly.
I'm playing a part in this. Because I'm doing this when this happens. And when you start to write it down, it's like, oh, maybe if I just changed this up and I didn't do this, let's see what happens, So it gives you a place to play.
I love how you said it. It's not about fixing the kids, or it's not about fixing it's about looking at each individual of the family and going, how can we best support this person in where this person is at and who this person is?
But even more so, I think it's us doing that for ourselves, because we had to do that in your group, right? It's like really looking at, well, how are you looking at it? Right?
Well, you have to start with yourself, right? You start with yourself, but you don't stop with yourself. You start with yourself, and then and you continue to work on yourself. And as you're working on yourself, continually working on yourself, now you're working on with your children. And it's like, it just moves like in harmony that way. But if you're only focusing on like, oh, I gotta fix myself first, you're not fixing, we're reconnecting with ourselves. So when you're focusing on only yourself, it's like, well, I got to do this first, I got to fix me first, and then I can work on my no, it's gotta move together.
Yeah, well, we
it
are
starts
all
with
in.
you, though.
Yeah, it does. And it's also just making, I like to say, making a shift, right? A shift in perspective. And that's where I think it's Marianne Williamson who says that a miracle is a shift in perspective, right? So that's where the miracles can happen, because it's like, oh, well, maybe if I stopped looking at, why am I looking at this way? And why am I reacting? Big thing, right? We all are guilty as parents of reacting to our children and their behaviors. And it's like, until we find another way to respond versus react, right? And take care of ourselves about what's going on internally with us, that we're adding the more fuel to the fire that's going on, And I think that's where, us tending to, it's almost like one of the things I've been learning through this whole parenting thing, and in your program too, that just like really stood out to me, was we're all really learning how to parent ourselves first.
Oh yeah.
It's like our inner kiddos who didn't get this and that, right? And realizing how much we learned, whether our parents meant to teach it to us or not. We can say, well, we never got taught that. Well, you actually did. You got taught it by example. And that's, as we all know, or maybe don't think about, we teach the most by example. The most things get picked up that way. So it's not about you sitting there and, this is what you need to do. It's, you can, what is that saying? Those old school parents who don't do as I say, do as I say, not as I do,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
yeah, which I always hated that. It's like, well, why are you going to tell me one thing and then you get to do another, but you want to say this is the case, right? That was where my rebellion came up. But but then we see that we do these things, and it's like, well, no wonder they do that because you're doing that. So we
Yes.
get to always see them mirrored in us. Um, so this program is coming up again, and I'm
Mhm.
so excited for you that you're doing this. And so do you want to speak about, I mean, it's 9-week program. You want to give
Mhm.
people an overview. And I know one of the biggest questions is going to be, well, what if I can't make all of the sessions, which that was me a couple times. And the other part was like with me and Ruben, well, I can make the sessions, but Ruben can't. So if
Mm.
obviously if you're a single parent, this is definitely a must for you. But, dual parents where one may not be available, how would you, and I can speak to it too, but how would you like to let them know how it's structured and how it can still be beneficial, whether or not you can make all of them or both people can?
Absolutely, I can definitely. So the 9-week program, it's going to be taking off the week of March 21st. And it will depend on registrations and what the availability is of the registered individuals. So there will be an option for available times and best available days. Oh, wow. Excuse me. Just like it felt like I inhaled a fly or something. It's like, it's like uh, and for those individuals that can't make the session, you will get access to the recording. You will also have access to the support group, the Facebook support group that is private. So it will only be the members from the courses or previous courses that you would be interacting with. And so, but you will receive a copy of each of the sessions so you can go over it and re-go over it in your own time. Now, in the past, I have had a lot of beneficial feedback to have it being done by both parents, but that isn't always feasible. And there are definitely ways that the individual that is taking the course can share with the other spouse. Like I said, there is the recording, so the other spouse could definitely watch the recordings to be able to follow along a little bit with what the person that is actually taking the course is going through, as well as the work sheets and the workbooks that is provided. There's always I highly recommend doing the missions and the homework with each other so that you guys can stay on the same wavelength and kind of really work together. Because once again, what you see and what your spouse sees will be slightly different. And all of those variables play in to really helping you get a good view and idea of what's going on with your child. So there are definite ways. There are ways to do it in such a way that even if you are doing the course on your own, there are ways to address that. Now there are the odd incidences where the other partner will not be on board with this. And the beautiful thing about this program is that it is designed to help you to identify and really understand different types of communication, and so that you can communicate with people even when it's not always the most pleasant. In fact, one of the main topics that we talk about are those uncomfortable conversations. So it really does provide simple tools on working in those situations as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say to people out there, because, I mean, many of the programs that we've been through, yours included, but ones that, I went through with Jesse, a lot of times Ruben couldn't be in attendance because the hours that these things are. But it is important to have the other parent on board if there is one, just giving that overview and helping, because as you well said, they'll catch things you're not catching, you know? And the other part is when you start learning these tools, then, we were able to call each other on things that we weren't seeing in ourselves that we were lending to, the cycle or oh, there's the pattern. Well, did you realize the way you said this or how you followed up with that? Like, and again, that's not something to do in front of the kid, but we would always have, we had our, what was our, we'll take it offline. I have something to speak to you offline. Because it was sort of like, and we would just have gestures or stuff to each other about, what we're doing to like let each other know that, yeah, your voice might be getting too loud, you're kind of doing something. And so we knew like that person needed to just kind of step away and the other person would come in because they were a little calmer. Because, fortunately, what would get him, riled up wasn't the same thing that got me riled up. And so we were able to, I mean, I would totally understand, but it was like not as intense. So, knowing your strengths of each other and having that little, those little code words to help out to very, very valuable. So
sometimes you do feel like it's like, tag, you're it.
Yeah.
You're in.
I'm out of here.
It's like,
Yeah. Well, and that's something to speak about because I know that's been a topic I know I've been speaking about, and that, I'm going to be even doing a big event in May about self-care. And this is something you've addressed in your program as well. And again, that whole myth that to be a good parent means that you sacrifice yourself. You make all these sacrifices for your kids and for the family, because family's first. And yet at the same time, that's not the way you go about it. So, I mean, if you wanted to talk about one of, any main things that you teach in your program or that have come up for you as a parent too, to know the importance of your self-care, your self-love, like taking that time to fill your cup.
So I think this is beautiful.
Especially with 5 kids. Okay, let's be clear. And with a husband that goes away for a long period of time too, and you're the only parent home.
Yes. So you dropped a lot there. So okay, so let's start with the self-care and the sacrifice. So the word sacrifice tends to have the psychological attachment to it that means that you're giving something and it's gone forever. Like it's a sacrifice. There's nothing coming back to you. And the program really goes deeper into shedding light on the investment that we put in as parents and how the investment of self-care is going to be paid out into our parenting. It's going to be paid out to ourselves as well. And it's really taking a shift on that look at the word like sacrifice, for instance, and switching it with really investment. Yes, there are going to be different seasons that you go through as a parent, and you're going to have to invest different things at different seasons, but you're not sacrificing, you're investing, which means that at some point you will get a return on that investment. Whereas if you're sacrificing it, you're not going to get anything back. Like that's gone, it's done. And that's honestly, we want to shift away from that way of thinking, because our self-care is not a sacrifice, it's an investment. And like being a mom, being a dad, being a parent, it's not a sacrifice, it's an investment, not only to us and our legacy, or to our children and their lives, but also to the next generation. And to the generations after that. So there's a huge amount of return on the investment that we give right now as a parent.
Well, to ourselves. And I think that's the thing though, is right. Because we keep, and again, we learn these things by what gets modeled to us. Because I remember my mom too, not doing a lot of things she wanted to. Well, I don't have the time. It was like
but that's psychologically teaches children that they can't make time for themselves. It doesn't matter if it is a male or a female or a child. We role model what what is the norm for our children. So by not taking time for ourselves, we are being selfish. By
Yes,
not
the
taking
opposite.
care of yourself, by not investing in your self-care, you are selfishly teaching your children that that's expected of them, that they should not take care of themselves, and teaching, you know, subconsciously teaching them that you're just supposed to keep pouring from that empty cup instead of filling it up and pouring from an overflowing cup.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's very important that we take care of ourselves.
And you know, the thing is, because we keep thinking, well, then I take away from them if I don't give, right? This again, you know, shift in thought, in consciousness of saying, well, you know what? Actually, if I get to take, you know, 20-minute break of whatever it is I need to do to refill my cup, whether that's a meditation, go on a walk, listen to podcasts, have some quiet time, and explain that to them, then they get habituated to that too and understand, you know, and then they get to have their time as well. You know, it's like, well, what do you know, I think that's really important is when, again, we're teaching by example. So when we're showing them that we're taking care of ourselves and just admitting it, yes, I'm overwhelmed. Like I am tired, like I am tapped out, like I had a long day. And I need to do this for me right now before I make dinner or do this or do that, you know, to teach them those healthy ways of going about it.
There is so much there. Like when you share with them, this is what I need right now, then you are also teaching them that they can tell people, other people, their spouse, their future spouse, this is what I need right now. But if you don't take that, kids are not, they're not stupid.
They learn.
They see, and they learn, and they can see, oh, mom needs a break.
Yeah.
Mom needs a break, and she's not giving it to herself. Why isn't she giving it to herself?
Well, and you know, that's the perfect thing, because when you're doing that and you're giving the language around it, then they're able to say it. Because I've had Jesse call me on going, you know what, Trace? Maybe you need to go, and because I'll burn sage a lot of times, and he knows that for like clearing out, you know, smudging and getting the negative energy. I would go, come here, and sage him, right?
Yeah.
He's like, and he would tell me, he's like, I think you need to go to your room and burn a leaf. And I'm like, oh, you know what? You're actually right. I do, you know. And same thing, Ruben, you know, when you have your partners and them saying, you know, he would tell me, he's like, maybe you need to go on a bike ride or a motorcycle ride. I think it's a good time for you to go do that, you know. And it's a nicer way to say, hey, you do need to take care of yourself, you know. And I would conversely do the same thing to Ruben. It's like, maybe now's a good time, you know, when, you know, all you're so like angry. I tell him he golfs. I'm like, maybe now's a good time to go out to the range and go smack some balls around his
and not making that into a bad thing either. Like just like, this is part of life. We have days where we feel at the top of our world, and we have days where we feel like we're at the bottom of the ocean. But not making that to be a good or a bad thing. It's just like, I'm having one of those days. You know, and just giving space for that. Absolutely.
Well, and that's what you teach so much in this, is giving space to them so that they know how to articulate it as well, and for us to learn those things. So I'm really, really excited for you. And I just want to encourage people out there, and we're going to do this too by encouraging with a little incentive, because I believe so much in what Leanne's doing. And we talked about, like, how can we get, you know, rile up the excitement about it. And she agreed, I get nothing of this. This is just, you know, let's put it out there. As a person who can be a testimony, and I have testimonies for her about this program and what it has afforded me, and having been in so many programs, and how this is so nicely comprehensive, very, straightforward. I mean, now you've seen Leanne and how she is. She's just straight up like that. And in fact, she's a little more kookier when you're in a private, in a private Facebook group. She'll admit a lot of things she's done as a parent, which is just like, oh, okay. Right. And we all know it. We've all been there. So for the first 4 people, if you want to register for her class, please email her. The email's down below. It's in the description. But for the first 4 people, if you pay it forward, she's going to give you a huge promo price of $497 to do the program. And I can't tell you, it's definitely worth even the $997 is, because it just, so chock full of good stuff. And let's say this, if you use the program, and obviously you've been using the program because you've made the program, been using it for years without even knowing it. But I know that once you learn it and you put it into action, it's going to serve you for all your all the parenting, and if anything for yourself, because again, we're reparenting ourselves and our inner kiddos, and we get to use this tool with our spouses, with our other family members, with other people, like, even your coworkers. I'm sure if you started to really look and see oh, here they're probably on this other cycle too, right? So really invaluable what you have to offer. And I thank you so much, Leanne, for taking the time to put it together. And, I've thanked you many times for just being a part of it. But yes, I encourage everyone out there who's a parent who is looking for some support and community, and just another way to shift it and look at it and get yourself those tools, just to build that rapport and that relationship with your kids. Because that's what's, if you don't have that, then
Exactly. And if you're a young parent that has just very young kids, you know what? Don't wait for there to be a problem before learning the tools that you need. It's so much better to prevent than to try to have to find a solution or a cure. If you can get those tools into your tool belt beforehand, you give yourself just that much more power in setting your child up for the best life forward as they enter their adult years. So.
Well, thank you, Leanne. And that was a great, do it beforehand. Unfortunately, our society does not really advocate for prevention versus waiting for a problem to happen. So valuable. And again, you can use it for yourself too. So it's never going to go to waste of this. So thank you so much, Leanne. Thank you for the service you do for parents, for kiddos, because, this is a generational thing, and it is legacy, is it not?
It is. It really is.
So, okay, people. Well, you have all the information there to get a hold of Leanne, and you also have a big incentive there to grab the promo price of pay it forward and pay $497. And so anywhere else that they can catch you, Leanne, do you want to share with them?
At the moment, the best places that you guys can get a hold of me, you can DM me on my Instagram. It's at Leanne Kauenhofen. You can email me. You can look me up on my Facebook. My Facebook account as well. And I do have a website, leannekauenhofen.com, as I am also a business coach. You do have access to contact me through there as well. There are definitely a bunch of avenues that you can go about to get a hold of me.
Well, there you go. And yes, you wear so many hats now. I swear, I cannot keep up with you. I don't know how you do it, but thank you again for your service. Thank you, everyone who came and listened to this. And please, I encourage you to take advantage of this great offer, and to just, get yourself the tools in your toolbox, because things are going to get broken. and need a little tweaking, a little loosening up or tightening up or whatever it has to be. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your never before lived day, and stay happy, healthy, positive. Cheers.
Bye.